What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Alarm TV. Welcome back to 3 Point Play, a TV show that we've done a while ago. Went on a little bit of a hiatus, but we've decided to bring it back here in the middle of shelter in place, quarantine USA, no sports corral, whatever you want to call the time that we live in right now. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here today, Matt Selz. He is the tools manager. He is the chief NASCAR writer. He is also our number one minor league baseball prospect hound here at fantasyalarm.com. He wears a million hats. He does a million things. And he's homeschooling his kids, too. Matt, what's going on, dude?
Oh, today has been a better day than yesterday was with the kids. It's kind of a flip of the coin as to what their attitude is going to be from day to day. So, luckily for me, on one of my busiest days without sports on the calendar, I am wall-to-wall busy today. But luckily for me, the kids are behaving themselves for the moment. They're still about several hours before they go to bed. So, anything can happen.
I see the hair coming out of the sides here. Now, are you just growing it out here? Oh, I was going to say, you're not losing any of it, right? Like, you're not pulling it out all on a daily basis.
The wife has a new quarantine hobby, finding how many gray hairs possible on my head at the same time. She found one in my beard the other day, so now there's no beard. Took that off, solved my problem. She's like, if you pick it out, it comes back faster. And I'm like, so it's a lose-lose situation for me on that one.
Right? What am I going to do? Dye this? Come on. Not even close. Anyway, for those of you who are just joining us, if you've never seen an episode of 3 Point Play here at Fantasy Alarm TV, it's very simple. This is where I and whoever my guest is, we debate three specific topics. Now, we each take opposite sides of the argument, but in order for your side of the argument to be proven, you need not one, not two, but three distinct, valid, separate points to back your side of the story. So each person will get to go. Matt will go first on the first question. I'll get to go first on the second question, and we'll back and forth from there. Each person gets to make their case, and then afterwards, the two get to duke it out and sort of figure out who's right, who's wrong, or if we just have to pleasantly agree to disagree, which is usually the way a lot of these end up. But I've chosen some very interesting topics. You've chosen some topics with me. We've gone back and forth. So here we go, and we'll start off our first topic of the day, and that is, what is your level of interest in the KBO? Is this something that you're psyched about because it's baseball and it's DFS, or are you just thinking, yet another thing to pass the time, it might as well be esports? Matt, what side of the fence are you on?
So I actually do have genuine interest in the KBO, both as a baseball fan and a DFS player. My first point is this. It is baseball. I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. I know I write about NASCAR as well, but NASCAR is 1B, baseball is 1A. So if I can watch live baseball games at this point, I'm watching them. I don't care what country they're coming from. The fact that it's the KBO is pretty awesome because that's basically the second best international league in the world behind the Nippon Professional Baseball League, which is Japan. So yeah, first point is I love baseball. It's live baseball. I'm going to watch it. Number two, there are major leaguers playing in the KBO, so at least we're familiar with some players. Now, there's only 2 or 3 per team that are allowed, so a lot of them are actually Korean-born players. But it does kind of, bridge the gap in having to learn a completely new roster. You do know a few people. There are some American managers that are over there, like Matt Williams is managing one of the teams right now. That does help with the interest level for sure. Number 3, I know that the timing has been a lot of the discussion because of when ESPN is airing them live at either 1 a.m. Eastern or 2 a.m. Eastern, or in this case, the last few days, 5:30 a.m. Eastern. But they're also replaying those games in the middle of the afternoon. So you could be working at your computer because, we're all working from home now, so everybody's sitting in front of their laptop or desktop or tablet, whatever it is, and you can catch a matinee baseball game and it is baseball. They have American announcers. ESPN is using their standard baseball crew to announce it. So you do get matinee baseball like we ordinarily would. And in addition to that, watching it live gets us used to what we could be seeing from MLB when it comes back, because there'll be no fans in the stands, likely for, if not all of, certainly most of the regular season when it comes back. And so instead of it just being a jarring experience that some of us have only seen a handful of times, like Baltimore a few years ago when they had the riots and they played with no fans in the stands and they televised the game, I will now be used to seeing a baseball game with like cardboard cutouts or no fans in the stands, or what that would look like, because I'm watching KBO.
All right, 3 very valid points, Matthew. I love the fact also that the cardboard cutouts are all wearing masks as well.
Yes, that's a lovely touch.
It is a lovely touch. But let me tell you something, dude. I have zero interest in the KBO. I got zero interest in the DFS. And let me tell you why, point by point, if I may. Number one, and to go by your point here, to counter it, watching games is a disaster with this time differential. I'm not getting my butt up at 2:30 in the morning. I'm nodding off at 9 o'clock at night on the couch these days. So getting up at 2:30 in the morning, if that's just not me having to go for a quick pee, I don't know what is going on. There's no way I'm going to do that. And the replays, come on. Who wants to watch a replay? You wake up in the morning, you're surfing the internet, you're looking at news, boom, you already see the final score. The final score happens already, and you're like, oh, come on. So it's ruined for you there. So that's point number one. I can't deal with the time differential. I'm sorry. That's just too late in the morning, and then the spoilers in the afternoon. And it's just, watching a replay of a baseball game that really just doesn't pique my curiosity that much. That's point number one. Point number two here, learning the player pool, the style of game they play, the level of competition takes a very, very long time. So playing, like versus multi-lineup players in DFS makes it more than just an uphill battle. I mean, you've gone over to DraftKings and looked at that. If you don't know the rosters, it's taking you forever to figure out which W. Lee you want in your lineup. I'm not trying to say this in like a bad way. I mean, it's probably no different than, somebody from another country looking at our lineups and being like, why are there 17 dudes named C. Jones? I mean, so I get that. For me, for DFS, though, I mean, it's problematic, not to mention the fact of when you have to get those lineups in, because of, again, back to point one, the time differential. So learning the player pool and then the style that they play and the subpar performances, Dan Straley, Mike Wright, come on. Jerry Sands is a big name over there. You got to be kidding me. And then I got to be honest with you. Point number 3, there are definitely better ways, smarter ways for you to spend your hard-earned money during this quarantine time than on KBO DFS. I mean, really. I get it, you look and you see that Sean Mitchell's crushing it during esports and Counter-Strike, and Fantasy Alarm owns that, and he's probably pulled in a few grand in the past couple of weeks. But come on. I mean, nobody's going to hit it like that all the time, and when you're sitting there and you're playing KBO DFS, that's just... I tell you, buy your kids some new books during your homeschooling time or something like that. To me, Matt, it's just no bueno.
I mean, I get the DFS aspect of it. It is tricky to go through the 50 different W. Lees and have to know what team they play for. But, I mean, I don't play it that heavily. I'm not, saying you should go through your entire bankroll and blow it on KBO because it's baseball and you have some fixing for MLB and this is similar. But I am saying that it is an interesting thing to watch. It's better than, I've been writing iRacing playbooks for the last 5 weeks. This is, thank God, the last weekend for that. Because we actually get actual NASCAR races coming back. There won't be any fans. Insert your joke here about that. But you know, this is an actual live event, not guys competing over computer games. This is actual live baseball, and yes, the style of play is different, but it's refreshing to see that a guy throwing 93 with control still gets guys out, because that's like a number 4 starter here in Major League Baseball, because everybody wants the dude that throws 100. So, I get the time difference part, but also as a prospect writer, it's interesting to start scouting some guys that might come over in the next year or two. The KBO isn't well represented in the major leagues. There's only 3 active players in the major leagues that have come from the KBO, but they have a decent history of sending some pretty helpful guys. Also, Miles Michaelis.
Come on, like Byung Ho Park, he was phenomenal during his time with the Twins. Or
okay,
how about Hee-Sop Choi? Oh, wasn't he one of the best first basemen out there?
I actually owned Dae-Ho Lee in a couple of fantasy leagues a few years ago.
You must have dominated with Dae-Ho.
But you do have guys like Ji-Man Choi, played in the KBO, came over. He's been pretty solid. How about Hyun Jin Ryu? He's been a pretty effective pitcher.
Yeah, well, he's helpful.
Shin Soo-Choo, that guy's been pretty good, pretty reliable bat. So yes, there's only a handful, but there's only a handful from China too. There's only a handful from Japan.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if you're watching the KBO, I mean, you might as well be saying I prefer XFL over NFL football.
No, I'm just saying this is a reasonable substitute for a time we don't have MLB, and it's like watching high AA is basically what it's the equivalent of.
I've heard people say that it's more exciting to watch these guys play MLB The Show, all right, and watching Joey Gallo beating everybody in that during this time.
And to each their own. I'm not going to say it's not fun to watch Joey Gallo launch virtual bombs in new Globe Life Field or Park or whatever they're calling it, and get pissed at EA Sports because they had a terrible picture of him in the loading screen, and so they changed it. But, it's an actual live sporting event that I can watch that's baseball.
All right, let's move on to subject number 2, slow drafts. All right, here we go. Like, slow... I gotta stick by my guns here and I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna take the negative side of the slow draft. I get it. I get the reason for it. And it's, people talk about differing schedules and things like that. First of all, my first point about why I hate slow drafts is that how in the world can you not find 3 hours of alone time from your family or spouse or friends or whatever to do a draft, a regular draft? I'm not even saying do an auction. I'm saying a regular old snake draft, which really should only take a few hours anyway. All right, it doesn't have to be an all-day affair. If you put everybody on a time clock in between picks, then boom, the draft moves forward. If you're telling me that you can't find 3 hours out of a span of like 3 months' time where you're prepping for your leagues, whether it's baseball or football or NBA, the fact if you can't do that, I mean, that's garbage. You might as well not even play. Forget the slow draft, because if you're saying to me that you're so busy and your life is so important that you can't take 3 hours out of one day in a 3 or 4 month span, then I don't even want to play a league with you, because chances are that you're going to crap out on it anyway. You're not going to want to put in the time, the dedication, or the effort that takes to do a league. Point number 2, clock times are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. You got some people who are like, well, we'll do a 3-hour clock. You know what? Why do a 3-hour clock? Why not just do a regular draft? Or on the other side of the spectrum, people are like an 8-hour clock, because if somebody's sitting there at work and they're not able to make their pick because they've got to work a full day, a full 6 to 8 hour day, and they're not going to be able to check their messages. You know what? There are always workarounds here. But sitting there with a 3-hour clock, a 4-hour clock, a 6-hour clock, an 8-hour clock, you know what you're doing? All you're doing is opening it up for point number 3. Draft day isn't about milking the clock and waiting for news to happen, which is what far too many people do. It's not a great strategy. It doesn't always work in people's favors, and all it does is drag on the process. Everybody loves draft day so much, and we get this in this industry all the time. I love to draft. I love it. That's why we do mock drafts all the time. That's why we end up doing best ball leagues, because everybody loves to draft and everybody hates the in-season maintenance. Well, if you love to draft so much, then let's do a draft. Let's not do something that's going to take a month and a half long and piss people off. I don't want to have to sit there and make two picks in a 12-hour span. Let's make those picks now, and guys who milk the clock end up telling you that they're ready to hustle it up and to move it. No, dude. So many things wrong with a slow draft, Matt. So many things wrong with it. They need to be abolished.
Okay, so let me start this off by prefacing that I get the point of slow drafts. I'm not saying that all of your drafts should be slow drafts, but I understand the point of slow drafts. So with that in mind, why I would do a slow draft and have done slow drafts and continue to do slow drafts, especially for baseball, year after year, including the TGFBI Industry League, they are perfect for people who are very busy. Okay, you and I both know how busy we can get. There's no sports going on, and I've been working since 7 o'clock this morning and will continue to work until midnight tonight. And there's no sports coming on. Okay? So, let's say, for sake of argument, that there are sports coming back in, like, July. And I'm writing baseball. And I'm writing football draft guide articles. And I'm writing NASCAR pieces. And you still have baseball prospect reports, let alone DFS side of things. And managing the tools to make sure all of our Fantasy Alarm subscribers are happy with the tools and they're working properly. That's easily a full day, day after day after day, in the middle of NFL draft season. So, slow drafts for people who can't pull away for a few hours at a time. Yes, it doesn't sound like that much. But if you've been working a 8, 10, 12-hour day, and you come home and your wife and your kids want to see you, and then you go, oh no, I'm sorry, I got to go spend another 3 hours doing sports stuff, that can kind of get irritating. So I get that the very busy schedule doesn't really fly, but there are people who have busy enough schedules that a slow draft is worth it. Also, you can still draft and only take a few minutes per player, like to make your pick. So just because it's set to 4 hours doesn't mean it has to go that long. Number 2, if news comes out of a player being injured or some other issue coming up with them, I have time during a slow draft to replace that player on my roster with a draftable player, rather than hoping you can hit the waiver wire as soon as the news breaks and you're high enough in priority and nobody else has seen it that you can pick a guy who wasn't even good enough to be drafted in a normal league with normal rosters. For sake of argument, I drafted Trey Mancini in TGFBI. 3 days later, the news came out that he had a cancer diagnosis. My pick then came up and I was able to get a second first baseman to go replace him, who was a solid option. Had we done a normal TGFBI draft and I draft Trey Mancini and I'm like, this is awesome, and 3 days later the news comes out, and then you're stuck with a backup dude because all of the starting first basemen have been drafted because you're in a 14-team industry-laden league that's very deep rosters, then you're up a creek, right?
Okay.
Point number 3. If you've only had time to do, let's say, 4 or 5 rounds worth of research because life happens, things come up, you're busy, you put in some time but not as much as you wanted to, you only have time to do a few rounds worth of research, and you head into a normal draft. Well, then you're just flying by the seat of your pants after the 5th round. Whereas a slow draft, you can get through the first 4 or 5 rounds and in that time still continue to do some research and evolve your draft strategy. Pick up. I'm not saying watch the news incessantly. I'm just saying look at the stuff you intended to look at before the draft and continue to be a smart drafter, as opposed to, oh, hey, yeah, sure, I'll join that league, and, oh, I really only had time to do 5 rounds worth of research. Sorry, guys, my team is 5 players deep and the rest of it sucks, and here's my money. The slow draft allows you the time to get a little bit more research done in between your picks so that you can be a more competent and competitive league mate.
That's terrible. What a horrible take that is. You can only research 5 rounds deep? Come on. Listen.
It happens.
We all have stomach issues at some point or another, right? We all bring our phones into the bathroom. With the amount of time that the normal human being spends in the bathroom sitting on the can, guess what? You can research deeper than 5 rounds worth of stuff. Come on, man.
I'm not saying I do it. I'm just saying I've seen it happen. I have seen friends of mine go into a slow draft because they were not fully prepared enough for a regular draft and didn't want to not play because they wanted the fun of it. So
prepare.
I do that. You know I do.
I know you do that. I do that too.
Baseball draft guide this year.
And to touch on your point there about the fact that you can just make your picks within a couple of minutes, that's no big deal. Yeah, that's true. And my average pick time is significantly lower than everybody else's. You know what the problem is, Matt? The problem is that I get my ass up at 5 o'clock in the morning every single day, and I'm sitting in front of the computer, and I'm working all morning, and I'm taking care of stuff nonstop. And what am I doing for those 8 hours sitting in front of the computer before I have to go and do the radio show on Sirius XM or a live stream here? All right, I've got the windows open for these slow drafts for when they happen, and literally not a pick goes by. And then all of a sudden, when I'm here doing a recording with you on 3-Point Play, I just got it in my ear right there. Bing bong, you are on the clock. Okay, that's great. Guess what? I'm not looking right now. I'm not making my pick because I'm in the middle of doing something right now. It always comes up at the most inconvenient time. Come on, how many times have you sat down to dinner? How many times have you sat down to dinner with your family and all of a sudden you realize that you're on the clock and it's a 3-hour clock, but no, you got dinner that you're prepping with your wife and you're serving your girls and you're having dinner and then you're watching maybe a little TV afterwards and you're unwinding, and then all of a sudden those 3 hours go by, boop, miss your pick.
No, you could take you're going to go to the bathroom some point in 3 hours. It's just physically impossible not to take a bathroom break in 3 hours. So go on your phone.
But then you can't. You're not going to have enough time to research because it's round 8 of your draft, Matt. You've only done 5 rounds worth of research, and now you're on the toilet. And now you're going to sit and try and scroll through and do another 3-4 rounds of research before you even make this pick?
No, clearly you would do it throughout the day, leading up to the start of the draft. I'm just simply saying that there is a reason slow drafts continue to happen. It's because people like the fact that they don't have to carve out a specified 3-hour block of time. They can do it around their ever-changing schedules. They can work it in when it fits them.
Missing out on the fun of a draft, though.
No, not really.
Isn't half the fun sitting there talking smack?
Yes.
Oh, look, there's another horn I hear from Fantrax, which means I'm on the clock yet on another draft right now that I'm doing. It's another inconvenient thing. And I'm going to get a text from Evar in about 10 seconds. It says, "You're on the clock, dude. Don't forget to make your pick."
That's why you can also set your cue and auto pick.
Dude, the whole fun of doing a draft is the camaraderie, making fun of somebody else's pick, looking and seeing who's gotten the good bargains, who's the savvy player right now. You can't get that in a slow draft.
You can get it. It's a little lighter, but you can still get it in a slow draft. And if you're drafting with just a bunch of schmucks who did a slow draft to take 8 hours of your life away per pick, then okay, I get the frustration. But if you're setting up a league with your buddies who are all equally busy and all equally agree to this, then you can't get upset that the clock runs down for some guys and doesn't for others. Or just make a simple rule that everybody sets their cue so that if they're not around, it will auto pick for them.
Yeah, because there you go. That's another beautiful thing about draft day is who's on auto pick.
Yeah, people auto pick in a regular draft anyway.
Oh, and I love it. I love it when people time out after 8 hours and then they contact you immediately when they get auto picked and they're like, "Oh, dude, sorry, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Could you do me a favor?"
We never back out picks after Like a
No,
slow
you
draft.
don't. What happens
No.
if you set the fantasy alarm staff league up and I said to you, I was like, hey, Matt, dude, so I had to take my wife into the doctor's office. I had to sit there and wait for her. It ran over. It was crazy. My phone died on me. By the time I got home, I timed out. Nobody's made their pick after me yet. You sure we can't back that out?
There are extenuating circumstances, but if you were just too busy with your regular daily life to not get the 14 emails that Fantrax and NFBC sends you when you're in a slow draft for when the round ends, the round begins, which theoretically should just be one thing because the same thing, if a round ends, another one begins. You shouldn't need two separate emails. When you're like in TGFBI, they send you one for round begins, round ends. When you're 2 picks away, when you're 1 pick away, when you're on the clock, when you make your pick, just in case you weren't aware of who you picked. And then when you're like, and then they send you one mid-round. So like, there's literally no way you could not know you're on the clock. If life gets in the way, there are extenuating circumstances.
There is if you turn around and you say, you know what? These people are sending me the most inane amount of notifications.
That's true. If you turn
blowing
them
up my
off,
phone, I gotta mute these things.
if you turn them off, then that's yes. But there are also people that auto pick for the entire regular draft too. Put
a gun in my mouth and just pull it.
There's a friend of mine who intentionally does that because he's discovered he gets better teams when he auto picks than when he actually drafts. Which is a different.
Yeah. On that note, let's move on to our third topic here. And let's have a little fun. Well, let's have a little fun at Matt Selz' expense because this guy went the no kid route. That guy's got 2 young girls at home with him on a regular basis now.
Yep, every day.
Here you go. For all you parents at home during this quarantine shelter-in-place time, homeschooling versus hiring an online tutor. Matt, which side are you on?
I'm taking the homeschooling.
I dare you.
Okay, well, we all know your stance on kids to begin with, so that's probably going to bias your opinion on this. But point number 1 is that I, as a parent, it's going to be real hard to concentrate with a pin being pulled out of a grenade. Just like it is every time I try to teach my kids. Point number 1, I get to be a hands-on parent. There's a lot of parents that just send their kids to school each day, let the teachers teach them, come home, okay, you get 2 sheets of homework that doesn't really tell you all that they did that day, and then once a quarter you meet with the teacher and have a parent-teacher conference, and you kind of figure out what your kid is learning, but not really. And if you have a kid like my daughter who doesn't say anything except when anybody else is talking, you're never going to find out what she's actually learning in school. So, I get to be a hands-on parent. I get to control what they're learning. I get to help them out if they're having trouble. I get to see exactly where their trouble is so that going into next year, I can maybe prep the teacher for where they had trouble so that we don't spend the whole first quarter trying to figure out where her issues are for the next school year. Point number 2, I can set up a schedule on my day-to-day needs for my kid. If you have a tutor, it's usually around their schedule. They're sitting down for several hours at a time. They're hammering stuff out. It's, well, if you can't make the 9 to noon or 1 to 5 or 9 to 5 work, then I'm not your tutor. Go find somebody else. In my case, like today, while we're, filming this, the kids are in their room doing some, free time type stuff in their room, which I will then have to hopefully not rebuild their room after this. But
yeah, I was just gonna say, why don't you get yourself a coat of primer paint because they're drawn on the walls right now.
I had plenty of time this morning, so we sat down this morning. We did a few hours worth of schoolwork for both kids. Now they get some free time in the afternoon. We'll hit it back up, once this is done. The day before this, schedule was completely different. I had a busier morning. We did stuff in the afternoon, so I get to set the kids' schedule and what they're learning day by day as my workflow shifts. Number 3, in a time where folks are keeping their budgets tight because, let's face it, as of today, as I saw on the news, there are 33 million Americans that are filing jobless claims and needing help with unemployment programs and the government programs that are being, sent out to folks. So in a time where budgets are tight, it's really kind of hard to make the case that you can afford a private tutor. You know, most of us send our kids to public schools, which, yes, are paid by your tax dollars, but that's once a year, basically, when you send your taxes in and they budget it out and whatever. You don't have to pay them on a weekly basis like they're a daycare facility or a private school or something like that. There's no tuition. It's a public school, so you just send your kid, they come back, they've learned what they've learned, and then, you know, in April you pay your taxes. So if you have the money to do a private tutor, okay, but you could also save that money and, you know, save it for a rainy day fund, because who knows, maybe something like this happens again sometime soon. I pray to God it doesn't, but if it does, you'd have a rainy day fund. So it's kind of hard for me to advocate laying out the kind of money that private tutors get in a time where most people are trying to stretch paychecks or, you know, government unemployment benefits out as far as they can.
Save some money for KBO DFS, things like that.
Let's save some money for paying off some debts.
All right. Were those your 3 points?
Those were my 3 points.
I'm going to own you right now. Here we go. First of all, I'm like, do you remember the movie Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yes.
Remember the kid, the catcher, he's got the big net and he puts him in a little... Yeah, that's me. That's me. Number 1. All right, on why you should be hiring an online tutor. How many parents are actually qualified to teach the curriculum necessary for a child's education? It doesn't matter if they're in the 2nd grade, the 3rd grade, if they're in the 5th grade or the 6th grade. All right, how many parents are qualified? Do you know how many stupid people I grew up with who own the bumper sticker? My son's an honor student. How many times I have to look on Facebook and see my daughter won this, science fair competition. These people are not teaching their kids, nor should they be teaching their kids. Their kids are doing just fine without them. Stick to the professionals. It's like, I can probably fix a leaky sink in the bathroom, but is that something we want Howard to do? Or maybe we should get a professional plumber in here to do the job right. Point number 2. I almost said 3, but I'm only at 2 here. The need for outside interaction, someone else to share opinions, to inspire discourse, is a necessary part of education. If my dad is teaching me, well, guess what? That's my dad. And I should be listening to everything that my dad says. And it doesn't matter if my dad's an idiot or not. I'm going to agree with what my dad says that I should be, learning about. Or if my dad says that these are facts, those are facts that I should accept as truth. And it's just that doesn't inspire them to come back at you with individual thoughts and ideas and impressions that they're getting. It's not teaching them, when you're being instructed by a parent who's also your chief disciplinarian, who's also the person who provides for you, the person who's also supposed to unconditionally love you. You need a little bit of separation from that when you're being educated and you're trying to be inspired to be an independent free thinker. And now point number 3, with all the other stresses that parents have, i.e. working from 7 a.m. till midnight, supporting their family, paying the bills, etc. How is that not going to wear so heavily on you, the adult, that it isn't going to affect the child and or the learning process? You're sweating the bills, Matt. You just came off of a 15-hour day staring at a computer screen, and now you got to sit there and go teach, the youngest about shapes and colors and sounds that a cow makes and things like that. Like, you're tired, dude. You're exhausted. Raising a family, raising kids is work. Like, I shout out to all the housewives out there who do the day in, day out, because yes, that is work and you're exhausted. And the last thing you want to do is take out some inner frustration or lack of alone time that you get on your kid while you're trying to teach your kid. So for me, online tutor, hire it, make it happen, work the schedule out, because your kid is going to be better in the long run. Boop.
So let me counter a few of those. 1, about your point with outside contact. I don't know about most school districts out there, but I know that a few, the one that my kids are in, and my mom's also a teacher, so I know about that one, and I know a few of my friends. Their teachers are reaching out to their kids multiple times a week, whether it be just through email or Zoom class. My eldest has a Zoom class once a week where the whole class gets together and they just hang out. There's no teaching, but they hang out. They talk about some various stuff, so they still get the social interaction type part of that. Also, if you hire an online teacher, there's a fair bit of chance that you'll be needed throughout the lessons to help the kid out at some point, or help with a technical issue, or to make sure they're not just turning the screen off on the laptop or tablet that you set them up with, and that they're gaming instead of, paying attention to the teacher. So in terms of, let's just set them over here at this desk with this teacher and I can go and zone out and get stuff done, that's not really how it's going to happen. So if I'm spending the time sitting there watching the kid watch a teacher, I may as well be the one that's teaching the kid as opposed to me watching the kid learn from the teacher. Your point about stupid people, okay, there's a lot of them out there. That's not going to change. I consider myself to be a fairly bright guy. My wife is smarter than I am, which is a bonus in a lot of different ways. But, if I don't know something, I also have the wherewithal to go and look it up or reach out to their teacher and go, hey, how would you approach this, or whatnot. There's, they have made the teachers very well accessible to parents and students during this time. And my kids also, by the way, still get lesson plans emailed to them every morning by their teachers. Their teachers send them, here's an intro video that's like 3 minutes long about what we expect you to do today. Here's the math video. Here's a reading video. Here are some online books that you can read together. Here's, an extracurricular science thing. So in terms of, we might be very lucky in what our school district is doing, but in terms of that,
sounds like it. It definitely sounds like it. And isn't Nebraska one of like the best educational systems statewide?
Yeah, according to the newest U.S. News and World Report, Nebraska is 7th in the country, K through 12. So,
see, there you go. So you guys are doing it right over there.
Right. So that helps, and that's part of the reason why I have this view of why would I want to pay somebody to go teach the curriculum that my kid's getting sent to us every day anyway. But if you're not in a system that's doing that, I can understand the draw to spend the money on the private tutor, but still, as a parent, I would like to control, like, not control in a bad way, but like be around and know what my kid is learning and help them maybe think about things in a different way. Because, like, for example, my eldest is having trouble learning how to read, right? So there's one way the school system is showing them how to read. I learned how to read a different way because I learned how to read, like, not to date myself, but like 28 years ago. So things have obviously changed in the last nearly 3 decades.
I think I graduated college by the time that you were learning to read. That's really upsetting. Could you please not add numbers to this one here, Matthew? Thank you.
So things have clearly changed in the last, even over the last decade or 2 decades of education, things have changed. Just look at Common Core math. I'm not going to get into that because I got a 700 on my GRE in math. My wife got a 790 out of 800 on her GRE in math, which is the grad school test you take to get into grad school. So we're both real good at math. We do not get Common Core math at all. It doesn't make sense to us any way we cut it. We've already gone over in my 5 for 5 the finger thing that some people can do that I can't. However, reading, I learned a different way that is apparently clicking with my daughter, because in just an hour of work today, she's already made up about a week's worth of stuff that she was struggling with previously. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about with hands-on that the tutor might not recommend, but I could as a parent.
All righty, here you go, folks. That's the arguments. Those are the arguments on the table here. What do you guys think? Tweet us at Fantasy Alarm. Make sure you tag at the Selzman, at RotoBuzzGuy on there as well. If you're tweeting us your opinions on this, the topics at hand: KBO yes or KBO no? Slow drafts, are you into them, or do you just want to pull your hair out and put a gun in your mouth because they're a nightmare? And then, of course, argument 3, homeschooling versus get yourself a tutor. So thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope you had a great time. I know I did. I believe Matt did. I haven't heard Matt laugh like this in some time, so this makes me feel pretty damn good. That's going to do it for 3-Point Play here on Fantasy Alarm TV. From Matt Selz, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.